We are live. Oh, say some of our destination have errors. I'm gonna. Are we live? Okay. Okay. I think we're good. What's good, people? This is Moss Pride with a Not Move podcast. We got another episode of WNBA basketball. So I did something interesting this week. Um, Instead of going through my usual routine, my usual, me and ChatGPT, we paired up. I looked through WNBA history. I kind of searched up the history of the game, excuse me, as a sport, as a movement, as a as a league in itself. Before we get to that though, we got a few you got some news. Unfortunately, Nafisa Collier has been injured. I've been praising her a lot so far throughout this process. She's been the MVP front runner, pretty much one of the best two-way players in the league. Um, and two people have been arrested for throwing toys on the floor at WNBA games. Yes, yes. If y'all have been watching, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Trade deadline. We got Brittany Sykes traded from the Mystics to the Storm for first. We have, excuse me, we have DJ Character traded from the Wings to the Lynx. I'm sorry, from the Wings to the Lynx. Um, Very interesting trade comparison. I know there's this thing where we would like explain this in so terms. Candace Parker did a good job with her DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs comparisons. That was very good. So we have those trades. Excuse me, and it's so we had some exciting news. Of course, bad news with Nafisa Collier being injured. So we're going to get into a little bit of history, right? So of course we know the league started in 1996. It's a baby so far. So and I brought up when I did the episode about the potential strike. Um, is Again, like I think Jordan only had 4 championships. He was on his fourth championship by the time the league had started. So yeah, it was very, very, very young league. And David Stern, so I read David Stern did the proposition for the WNBA coming to be. And it's very interesting because I think, I guess he fed off of what Michael Jordan was doing. Basketball was at the peak of its powers. The Olympics was going on. It's like, okay, we're going global. Why not add a whole nother sub genre, I guess you could say, to the league? So I guess it was a smart investment, in my opinion. Uh, and eventually it's going to pay off, right? It's a young league, and eventually going to pay off. And so the formation of the teams, of course, the Liberty was there from the start. The Comets was there from the start. Sparks, I remember loving basketball. I remember watching that movie. And yeah, we had Miss McCall. She was there, right? She played for the Sparks in that movie. And so another thing they spoke about when I'm doing research on it was like Title IV in women's college basketball, right? I found that very interesting. It was very important to the league, right? Because and if you notice, a lot of WNBA players, they do 4 years of college. Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, a bunch of Breonna Stewart. It's a bunch of pretty much most all pretty much WNBA players going to give you 3 to 4 years of college. And so a lot of these stars, we learned to fall in love with these stars in college, and then you come to the WNBA, excuse me, and you see what they turn into, right? So you had Lisa Leslie, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Maya Moore. Those, like, the cream of the crop, the first woman to usher in this league we call the WNBA. And so Diana Taurasi is like the GOAT, right, of women's basketball, pretty much, right? She's lucky Cheryl Miller didn't be able to play the WNBA because she would have destroyed half of these. Anyway, not to get too sidetracked. Sue Bird was like the model of consistency, longevity. Like, I remember Sue Bird got drafted, I think, before I was born. I watched her win a championship in 2020. Like, that's how long she played. Maya Moore, of course, she stepped in and she was very dominant. And then uh reading the comments, Shell Miller, she kind of stopped playing basketball before the league actually started, because the league didn't come into play until 1996. So yeah, Maya Moore, the dominant player she stepped in, and then she was dominant, and then she stepped away. She had to step away. So it was this the Comets was actually like your first dynasty, right? They had the big three. They had championships. They were the dominant. Your first dynasty in the WNBA. They came in very early. They one of the first teams to start off. And what's very interesting is you see these like okay, so me watching from the time I watch, there's a lot of teams I never knew existed, right? Franchises changed a lot. So it's been kind of a high turnover rate for these franchises, which is very interesting, right? Because you want to see adding, but you want to see them add and expanding, but not kind of just turning over. That's not good. But yeah, it's very interesting to see where the game started off and where it's been at so far, right? So then then of course we all know about the EuroLeague, right? So the EuroLeague came before the WNBA, and players, again, loving basketball reference. Remember, she was overseas at first. People like the women went overseas to play. They didn't have basketball in America. David Stern saw that. He saw the NBA at its peak of its powers, global basketball. He said, "Hey, let's bring a women's league here," right? So they subsidized the league, brought women in. Then Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, all these different women came in and boom, dominated, right? So one of the things that's been the biggest talks, and I kind of talked about it a couple weeks back again with the strike episode, the WNBA versus NBA salary cap, right? So you have the WNBA salary cap, salary cap, which is much lower than the NBA salary cap, right? You have the flights controversy, maternity leave, that was a big one because of course they're women, and travel, different things of that nature. Of course, I spoke on the flights, sponsorship deals, and media, right? So one of the things that's been a problem for the WNBA is not enough exposure, right? You need exposure. Any league needs exposure. That's a given, because how can you push this? How can you push this league, right, without exposure, without sponsorships, without advertisement, right? If I there's plenty of people never seen a WNBA commercial. If I've never seen a WNBA commercial, what would make me interested? If I've never seen a WNBA player on the commercial, what will pull my attention? Right? I have to stumble upon the game and enjoy it. And if I pull up a game and it's a bad team plan, that's not going to work. So they need more exposure, right? So in 2020, of course, they had a new CBA agreement. They got more sponsorship deals. They got maternity leave, marketing, traveling, all the stuff they wanted. The role in media, and how they played a part in the revenue generation. And so it was like this big movement in 2020, right? Meanwhile, also in 2020, something probably the greatest women high school class is stirring up with Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark and all these people that's now in today's, right? Now, if we also remember in 2020, it was a lot of tragedy happening, right? It was tragedy happening, right? So now, let's bring it back to 2016 for a second. My bad, I skipped a little bit. Back to 2016. There was and the police shooting, if we remember this, and it caused uproar. Colin Kaepernick led the NFL kneeling, things of that nature. Before that happened, I don't know if y'all realized this. Before that, Minnesota Lynx started wearing the shirts, right? They started the movement. Colin Kaepernick stepped in for NFL. He did his thing. So it was so Minnesota Lynx kind of started the movement. Another WNBA team. So we got to give not props to our ladies for starting this movement and being the pioneers and the front runners, and just give our props to our ladies for that. And so they were making shirts, and they started the movement. And so it's been a lot of activism and advocacy within this league, right? And we got to give them credit for that. Also, Liz Cambridge, we got to give her credit for how she was very passionate about mental health, very strong in the mental health movement, right? And and so as I'm doing research, I'm like, they're in a lot of movements. These ladies are, And it's very interesting to see because a lot of times where a lot of times we see people get talked down on for starting movements in leagues. You hear the shut up and dribble. Colin Kaepernick get blackballed, excuse me, and they're just stepping out there. Delays. They're just stepping out there, just doing it right, and they're inviting that type of clash. They're inviting that type of clash to speak out against these things. Of course, the LGBTQ representation. They was very strong in that too. Of course, 2020 when the other police shootings happened, they were very strong in that, and they were strong in. Of course, I don't. Me being in Georgia, I remember how strong they were when it came to the campaigns, when it came to Congress and things of that nature, right? So it's very interesting to see this league as like I said, as a movement. This league was a movement. They were activists. They were moving and as at the same time progressing their sport. And I'm like, wow, these ladies are pioneers, right? And it's been great. It's been great to see because it's like, and especially looking back, actually doing research on it, it's wow. It's just beautiful to see. And so, of course, we're ushering in this era to where everything's going to get better, right? Everybody's going to be louder, stronger, faster, better, and everything is going to be easier to see, more visible, right? So, of course, Asia Wilson, Breonna Stewart, Kelsey Plum, Nescu, Nafisa Collier, Caitlin Clark. We got Juju Watkins coming in, Malaysia Fu Wiley, Keomi McMiller. All these prospects that's coming in and that's already here. You got Malonga, the 6'9" giant that's in Seattle. There's so many people coming in and this is going to be the era where the NBA where Grant Hill came in, right, and it changed the structure of the NBA, and then you had Penny Hardaway and then Jason Kidd, all these big guards, all these athletic forwards, all these point forwards with a ball handle, all these moments where all these super athletic, super skilled players coming in. Then you see LeBron and KD and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and then you have guards like Kyrie Irving and Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose. This is kind of that era we get into, where it's going to be a bunch of talent just pushing and pushing and pushing. It's going to look completely different from the structure of player we had before. This is the moment we're going to be. This is going to be the moment where you discussing different players and like, oh, he played in the less skill era. She played in the less skill era. They janitors or they housemaids, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if that was sexist. But yeah, basically is that's kind of era we get into. And then we got rivalries, the Liberty Aces, different teams like that. Rivalries. This is going to be that very potent budding league, right? There's going to be talent everywhere. Every team is going to soon have a superstar. Next 5 years? Every team is going to have a superstar, right? Paige Becker is going to be in Dallas. You're going to have Canada. You're going to have Jordan Canada in Atlanta. You're going to have Angel Reese in Chicago. You're going to have Caitlin Clark in Indiana. You're going to have Asia Wilson in Las Vegas. You're going to have a plethora of talent in Minnesota and New York. That's kind of league we get into. And of course, we got a super team, DJ Carrington going to Minnesota. We created super teams. Well, Liberty been a super team. Liberty been a super team. But yeah, so and that's going to be great to see too, because like we want to get to it. We want to get to a place where anytime you turn on the WNBA game, you're in for a good performance. Somebody's going to put on a spectacular performance, and that's what we get into now. And it's so it's been great to see. The last few draft classes have been very potent with talent, and we want to see the potency go up. We want to see the style of play change a little bit. Not necessarily that this style of play is bad, but we want to see a more diverse way of playing, right? And so, like I said, Keomi McMiller got a ball handle like no other. Malaysia Wiley got a ball handle and defensive prowess like no other, and she can get downhill and she can shoot three. Like they was double teaming her at half court, and she's not even a crazy threat from three. That's crazy, right? That's the type of athleticism that we want to see. Had the chicken wrap behind the back special, chicken wrap specials. We want to see chicken wrap specials. So that's great to see. Of course, remember a couple years back, Brittany Griner, the time of Brittany Griner, coaching diversity, things of that nature, friction, with the NBA fan culture, how NBA fans kind of talk down on the league, harassment, things of that nature. It was kind of this was a whole thing. Like, of course, not too many people know about it because not many people plugged in. But there was a lot going on with the growing pains and the controversies of this sport. And the thing was, these ladies, like, they had to go through it, right? They're getting talked down on social media. They're being minimized. Their efforts being minimized. NBA fan culture, as we know, can be toxic at times, just like any sport. And people, of course, with Brittany Griner taking her substances to Russia, her being detained is so, and then them making the move to get her back, it caused a lot of disdain for her as a person. And I remember watching it. I was in high school when it happened. Yes, I'm young. I remember in high school watching it happen, and I'm hearing people talk about, oh, they traded her for da 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 da. She doesn't deserve this. She should have been left over. It's like, I get it, but it's like she didn't do it. She's not a bad person because you know she's not a bad person because somebody traded an illegal arms dealer for her. That's a bad. I guess that's a bad move, but yeah, it's not her fault, right? We can't kicking down on her as a person, stomping, punching, whatever you want to do, or whatever you want to say. Kicking down on her as a person is not the right way to go, and I'm pretty sure that affected her mentally as well as other things, right? And then, of course, coaching diversity, they wanted more representation as far as women. They wanted more women coaches. They wanted more women represented WNBA because, excuse me, what good is it to have a women's league with nothing but men in the face of it? It's not. I mean, come on. Like, respectfully, like, if I had like a gentleman's club, I wouldn't want just a bunch of women in there with me. It's like that's our space, and same thing for them. I said gentleman's club. I didn't mean that gentle. Anyways, anyways, yeah. So they wanted their space for them. They're like, okay, this is the WNBA. This is a women's league, and we want women to be represented, right? We want women to be the face. When you turn on TV and you see WNBA, you want to see the W of the WNBA. You want to see women, and of course, that's respectable. That should be the case, right? So they wanted a lot of coaches in there, and this is some more activism they were doing. They wanted more women coaches, right? And then, so now here's where it gets interesting, right? Because we get to the one where the league starts, and then it goes, well, not it didn't go overseas. It reached overseas, right? For certain players, they got contracts from players playing in Lithuania and Istanbul and all these places, and they pull them over here, right? And then they go through this controversy, and they stuck with it. They stuck with the league, even though they're not being paid much, even though they still have to go overseas, and they kept sticking with it. They kept sticking with it, and then the league progressed. It expands, and they kept sticking with it. They kept sticking with it, and then they went through more controversy. They had more tough, They had more tough problems. They had more obstacles. And they kept sticking with it, and then things are happening in the world, right, outside of their control, outside of basketball, and they became activists, and they're blackballed for doing so. They kept sticking with it. They kept sticking with this league, right? And then this usher talent come in, right? So now we at today, right? Look, we're at today. CBA's coming up, and there's now this big rift between fans, and we all know what I'm talking about, right? This Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese thing that narratives are being pushed, right? The problem with this is that all other talent and all other headlines is being ignored. So I talked about it in my last episode. The Minnesota Lynx lost their first game at home like a week ago, and it's the trade deadline, right? The trade deadline coming up. That's a level of dominance that's historical, right? It's historical, and it's kind of being washed out by this Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark push back and forth that started, of course, in their college career with the championship, with Angel Reese getting the championship. And then the whole, you can't see me. And then it was, oh, that's classless. That's classy. That's nasty. She don't deserve to be here. And then you have this thing where it's like, so we tried to make Angel Reese this villain. We tried to make Caitlin Clark this, this white knight, no pun intended, where at the end of the day, they're both competitors. And so now we have a bright future, right, towards the league, and it's kind of being ignored. So now we have some more controversy. We're going to have this controversy for a while until people get their heads on straight, or until the actual fans of the league pop out and let all the who fans go to the wayside. Anyways, so now we're at this. So now we're at this point, right? Expansion, of course. The new talents coming in, Paige Beckers, everybody. NIL now is big, right? And the NCAA pipeline is going to hold strong. Now, here's the kicker, right? I think the leverage of the NIL, and of course, something we've been talking about previously too, the unrivaled league, both these things, they're going to force the CBA's hand, right? So, because of course, there's been this rift, there's been this friction, right? They're like, hey, pay us our money, pay us NBA money, or we're going on strike. So now they have leverage. Okay, so NIL players are not going to come into the league, and if they don't come into the league, they're going to force somebody's hand, and then unrivaled. They have an unrivaled league. They're like, okay, we're just going to play over here and make a bunch of money, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we're at this moment where we're at a standstill, right? And they're pushing back and forth. So you have the controversy over here, you have standstill over here, right? And it's a very tense moment, right? And this, I remember watching the Lakers versus Celtics documentary that came out 30, and this sounds very similar, right? You have the moment where they're trying to get paid, they're in their CBA deal with you have that friction over here. You have a budding star in Michael Jordan coming in. Well, of course, he didn't have NIL, so they didn't have that type of leverage. And same thing with like Juju Watkins and everybody that's still in college, right? They have the NIL as leverage. They say, hey, I'm not even going to come into the league because this NIL money looks a lot sweeter, right? Over here, you have the racial tension, right, and the rivalry between Magic and Bird, right? So now let's see if it follows the same route. The NBA just opens up the checkbook. I mean, WNBA opens up the check. CBA, I'm sorry, opens up the checkbook. Then these two rivals start going back and forth, knocking down championships back to back to back to back to back to back, right? Because I think that within the 80s, they 10 championships was won by Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and then I think every NBA championship involved one or the two, right? I don't know if that's going to happen between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, but let's see if it follows that same path. And then Michael Jordan, Juju Watkins come into the league and shock everybody, shock the world, change the landscape of basketball forever. Let's see if it follows that. I think I would like that for that to happen. Of course, we want to see that. I would love to see Juju Watkins come to the league and knock the boots off of everybody she sees. That would be great, right? So anyway, so that's kind of like a rundown from 1996, where they started the league. Then the progression, the comments and the controversy and the activism, and then the CBA deal in 2020, along with activism then, and then now we get to a point where the talent is here. It's at its most. I wouldn't say it's at its most potent point because I think it's going to get more potent, but it's at its rise. The potency of the talent is going to rise, and we get to the point where we're having this turnaround, right? Because we have the rivalry, we have the narrative. I wish the narrative would die and they actually come up with something real already. No offense. And we have some more talent coming in. Let's see if it busts to a head and it explodes, right? So that's kind of been a rundown. So they came a long way in 30 years, 29 years. My mom's older than the league. My dad's twice as old as the league. He's double the league age. So they came a long way in this 29 years they've been here. And I'm here celebrating the game. I'm here giving these ladies a prop to the game. I really enjoy this game. I say it every episode. I want more people to tune in and point to this game. I wanted the league to explode. Like I wanted it to expand, right? But yeah. So this has been another week of Not Move Podcast with the WNBA. I'm your host, your WNBA analyst, as you will say, Moss Pride. We've talked about the trades. Keep your toys to yourself, people. And Moss Pride is heading out. Not Move Podcast.